Hi, everyone. I want to take you back in time, especially because I love this topic so much. I see we speaking about surviving the storm, but it's also important to survive first to survive the storm. So let's go back in time, let's say to 2015. This was roughly about 6 years back. I was actually dragged into a lecture by my then girlfriend to an anthropology lesson where the professor then asked us, is there anything you know that you've never seen, you've never heard, or never felt? Is there anything you know that you've never seen, you've never heard, or never felt? And there was pin drop silence like there is on this Zoom call. Because if you think about it, there is no answer. And he walked us through examples like, why is it that from birth we associate blue to a certain gender and pink to a certain gender? Why is it that our morals in our country are different from another country? Why is it that our morals in a certain religion are different from another religion? So it all boils down to a social construct that's a result of your upbringing, of the kind of movies you watch, the people you surround yourselves with, the education you've had, and so on. So while this sounds all exciting and deep right now, what happened to me was I was in absolute shambles for a good 6 months, because then I started thinking, what matters at the end of the day if everything's a construct? And you just stop working, you get paralyzed. So I think after 6 months, what I realized, and just a light bulb moment that happened for me was, what if I could create a construct? Because it was liberating at the same time, right? I started believing that all of the boundaries that I had for myself, all of the boundaries that I've set for my work, for my friends, for my family, all of the things I wanted to do, all of my dreams I want to achieve, all of them just vanished overnight. Because then I realized, you know what? Everything can be influenced, everything can be changed if you just want to do it. And as an 18-year-old, in fact, I was 20 back then, as a 20-year-old, I decided to start up the right way. Right. So that's something I thought all of you should know before we start on just survival, on why is it that a teenager is in front of you who started up back then. But what happened in 2020 is something worrisome for all of us, is that all of the constructs we were brought up with just evaporated overnight. Let me give you an example. I am an extrovert who used to hate video calls. I am now on a video call and I'm locked up in my room. We as a human race were not designed to stare at a screen and just have conversations like this. We as a human race were not designed to be locked up in a room and have conversations like this. So naturally, our mental health, our mental fitness will go for a toss, because we are not designed to handle such situations. And what I want to show you on my screen right now is something that's bothered me my entire high school life, and something that's bothered me through and through my startup journey. So if the host can allow me to screen share quickly, I will show you a slide in a moment. While that's happening, it's the Instagram era I want to talk about. And let me pop that up. All right. So in the Instagram era, what's happening, and this, by the way, has bothered me quite a lot, is that in the ancestral world, we used to have the ability to stand out, to achieve all kinds of things, just as a result of comparing ourselves with 10 people, with 7 people, with the people in our tribe. But in the Instagram world, we now have millions, billions of people we're comparing ourselves with. And what that does is it paralyzes us to take any action, because we feel it's not worth it, because the top 1% of 1 billion or 1 million is so far ahead of what you can possibly achieve, what you could possibly incrementally achieve over a decade. You just give up and you get paralyzed. And we have now sort of accepted the fact that we are not in control of our own world. The world is somehow controlling us because, hey, social media, right? And somebody really made a powerful statement recently to me. This was a few weeks back. She said that, Tanmaya, social media will never be considered as a mental health trigger or a mental health pandemic of sorts, a trigger of this, because social media controls what's trending. So social media will never trend itself as the problem, right? But what I want to call out is it's given us this perception, and it's not really about social media. It's about the perception that it's given to all of us. that everybody has their shit figured out. Because when you're listening to me right now, I'm a 26-year-old and you're thinking, damn, this guy has got his shit figured out. I don't. All of us are figuring our own shit out. It's the biggest myth that whenever you see somebody successful speaking, all of the 5 TEDx speakers, that they have their shit figured out. What am I doing in my life? That is the flaw. That is the social construct. All of it has to break. So what's happening here? What's the problem really? And I want to share my story. But before that, I want to walk you through the gravity of the problem we're facing today. I used to believe that mental health and cancer both were silent epidemics. Cancer is a separate topic altogether, but now, thanks to COVID, mental health is a screaming epidemic, right? Just to give you a couple of points, 1 out of 3 professionals in India are dealing with burnout. 1 out of 3 professionals in India are dealing with burnout. It gets worse. In the UK, the average British child spends less time outdoors than a maximum security prisoner. And this is pre-COVID. We're raising Gen Z worse than prisoners. They are handicapped to communicate, which essentially means it's fostering loneliness. And there is a direct correlation between loneliness, anxiety, and depression. And here comes the best one. Most of us think that the leaders and the overachievers have it sorted. 72% of leaders, directly or indirectly, are struggling with mental health. So the probability of the 5 speakers that spoke today, the probability of 3 or 4 of them struggling with their mental health is 100%. That is the gravity of the problem we're facing. So what is the problem? I want to show you the problem, right? What is the problem with mental health? And again, I will share my screen. If you see my screen now, the problem with mental health is that for us, mental health has always been the left side. It's always about depression. It's always about anxiety. And throughout the last 5 minutes when I was talking, you guys would have been cringing from within because it is an uncomfortable topic. It is a stigma. But then, of course, we have the other extreme. When you look at the proactive side, it's only meditation. Like the only thing you imagine is a monk meditating somewhere in the hills, or maybe Jay Shetty with his wife on Instagram. So there is a balance over here that we need to look at. A prime example for you to break the stigma is just replace the word mental over here with physical, and you'll realize what I'm talking about. Physical illness equates to a hospital, whereas physical fitness equates to a gym. Physical fitness equates to a workout. So similarly, if mental illness, anxiety, depression equates to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, what does mental fitness equate to? The question we have to ask ourselves, I had to ask myself throughout the storm in 2020 is, what am I really doing for my mental fitness? Because we are not living in a precedented time. We are not in our original construct that our family brought ourselves up with. So how am I really working on it? Like, step 1 to solving a problem is embracing there is a problem. So there is a problem. We are all going through shit. But what are we doing for our fitness? And I'll give you some examples of how we get this wrong, right? How we get this wrong is, for us, it's almost always been a blanket statement that, okay, hey, I'm struggling with depression or anxiety when it comes to the proactive segment as well. So there are multiple types of cases, right? Let's say there is somebody seriously struggling through depression and anxiety. That's the left side. But there are people who are even afraid of accepting it because it's situational for them and it's not a part of their identity. For example, if I am struggling working from home just because I'm feeling isolated as an extrovert, and I'm just hesitant to ask for help or just get perspective because I fear that I'll be deemed as depressed over time, or there's a stigma of seeing a therapist. But it is situational. Or maybe point number B, like the previous speaker said, if I'm addicted to negative news and that's bothering me, that is situational. If I'm dealing with a toxic manager or toxic professor or toxic friend or toxic partner, that is situational, right? And there are so many ways of looking at mental fitness differently if you just change our landscape on mental health, or change our perspective on mental health. And mental health is such a heavy word. My request to all of you, something I changed in my vocabulary is just start calling it mental fitness, right? Cool. Let's start. The story, the storm. We have now survived through all of the facts and figures. So let's start the story, the storm. 26th February 2020. Everything was going fine for me. Touch wood, I'm so grateful to be saying this, that back then I had a $3 million term sheet in my hand. I had a steady relationship that had just started. It was in the honeymoon phase. I had a great team of 60, 70 folks. We had 10 flights booked to the US for a large event. We were scaling aggressively. We were partying aggressively. It was madness at WeWork. We had a 60 team member office. Brilliant. So 26th February, in spirit of mental fitness, I decide to fly down to Texas. I know it's quite ironic, but I did Vipassana, a 10-day silent retreat for meditation in Texas. I walk into Vipassana, and Vipassana is an experience where I don't have access to my laptop, to my phone, no device, no technology. I'm not allowed a paper. I'm not allowed a pen. I'm not allowed to interact with another human being. I'm not even allowed to make a facial expression with another human being. Complete opposite of information overload. Complete opposite of social constructs. And I felt that could be a challenge worthy of really pushing my boundaries. So I was excited and I didn't know what I was walking into. So I had to get up at 4 a.m., meditate for over 10 to 12 hours a day. An extrovert, isolated in a different country, meditating, who had never meditated before the way I had over there. Clearly, it was as good as hell for me. But day 4, something happened, which for me actually happened to be the single most reason why I was able to survive this storm in 2020. Day 4, despite being the resilient person that I've known myself to be, I went to my instructor, I broke my silence, and I said, hey, I don't think I can handle this anymore. Can I quit? And those words coming out of my mouth, it took me 4 hours to say, can I quit? Just go up to him and say, can I quit? And I felt so bad, so miserable for saying that, but it got really bad. The storm was horrible. So, and by the way, COVID hadn't started yet, right? So this was just me voluntarily walking into isolation, not knowing that when I walk out, the entire world will anyway be in isolation. So here's what the instructor said. He said, how about you come back 1 hour later? And if you still feel the same way, I will let you go. And I was amazed. I was like, oh my God, it's so easy. He's letting me go. Finally, I'll go back home, see my family and friends, get some human contact, go back to Instagram and check who's liked my stuff. Just those standard shallow human behavior coming back in my mind. But 1 hour later, when I came back, I didn't feel like stepping out of Vipassana. I was perfectly fine. In fact, I was excited to complete it now because my mind had changed. And that's where towards the end, I realized what happens is Vipassana has a concept called anicca, which stands for impermanence, that there is nothing possible in this world that can consume you beyond a time, whether it's good or bad, right? Any positive moment can't let you get carried away. And neither can a negative moment consume you till a point that you will start quitting on the most important things in your life. And who knows, it was serendipity, because the minute I walked out, fast forward 30 days, I lost my relationship. I lost my $3 million term sheet. I was on a 100% pay cut, right? I was in a lockdown. And for 7-8 months, it was hell, right? So I think that was maybe life preparing me for what it was. But I think a crisis, a storm triggers the best in you sometimes. And for me, what ended up happening was, touch wood, I took some unorthodox decisions where I gave 7% of my company to Y Combinator, which is also known as the Harvard of startups, where Airbnb was born. Fast forward a few months, basically 8 to 9 months. It's a long period in a lockdown. We finally raised around $3 million. We gave back some of our pay cuts. We gave increments. We launched a new product and whatnot, and so on and so forth. But overall, I want to share, what did I learn from all of this? Right? Because it's not just the fact that anicca or impermanence. What I learned is something I call the reality possibility matrix. And if I share my screen and quickly conclude, What you'll see here is life always for us has been life as usual, or work is business as usual. And it requires a storm or a crisis to trigger the unorthodox thinking, which for us was going to YC, or for us was taking some hard decisions regarding our finances. And that's when a new possibility emerges in your life. And then when things go great, for example, right now, to be honest, life is back as usual, touch wood. But then again, it shouldn't require a crisis for you to go back to this cycle and do and discover new things for yourself. So here's what we should be working on. And here's what worked for me, to be honest. I don't know if it'll work for you. For me, my mental fitness workout was as follows. And let me describe it to you step by step. Let me have you focus on what I'm going to say right now, because this is something which some people find a little uncomfortable. So for me, mental fitness was actually visiting a counselor, a therapist every fortnight, but me driving the conversation instead of her. Have you ever heard that? And here's what I did. For me, mental fitness was asking myself the right questions at the right time and making myself uncomfortable and maybe triggering a crisis in my mind even before it happens. And the questions are so simple that you ask yourself, hey, Tanmaya, how do you feel? I'm literally asking myself that question every fortnight. What am I grateful for? These are the easy ones. The hard ones are, what am I looking forward to in the next fortnight? And sometimes you don't have an answer, but you have to figure it out, right? And the fourth and final one that I ask myself is, what could cause me stress? What is the crisis? And what is the change I'm looking forward to? And whenever I don't have an answer, right, of course, the counselor has all kinds of strategies to break the social constructs I've been brought up in. Because for me, the only reason why this has worked through and through 2020, the only reason I'm here is because for me, mental health is not mental illness. Mental health is mental fitness. And it's the single most reason why I have been able to survive the storm. Thank you.